I always thought my marriage would end with a whimper, not a group chat screenshot. But here I was, staring at my laptop screen at 3 in the morning, wondering how 15 years of marriage had turned into a corporate conspiracy. My name is Ethan Bell, and I'm a systems architect for a mid-sized tech company in Denver. Nothing glamorous. I fix servers, design networks, and occasionally pretend to care about quarterly reports. At 39, I'd settled into the comfortable delusion that my wife Tara and I were just going through a rough patch. The rough patch had lasted about 3 years. Tara worked as an HR manager at Pinnacle Solutions, one of those glass and steel monuments to corporate ambition downtown. She'd been putting in longer hours, taking more business trips, and developing an impressive collection of designer clothes that definitely didn't fit our budget. "Working late again?" she'd text, usually around dinner time when our 12-year-old son Max would ask where Mom was. Max had started asking that question less frequently. Smart kid. He'd figured out the pattern before I had. The revelation came courtesy of a security system I'd installed after our neighbor's house got broken into. Nothing fancy, just cameras and motion sensors linked to my phone. What I hadn't expected was to accidentally record Tara's phone conversation in our kitchen. She was on speaker, talking to someone while making coffee. I was reviewing the footage the next morning when I heard her voice, clear as a bell. "Listen, Mom. The situation is perfect. Max looks exactly like Brent, but Ethan is too clueless to notice. When I file for separation, child support is basically guaranteed." I rewound the clip 3 times, each replay hitting like a sledgehammer to my assumptions about reality. Brent Mallory. Her boss. The guy with the silver Jaguar and the habit of calling our house at odd hours for urgent HR matters. I sat in my home office, staring at the timestamp on the recording. My coffee had gone cold, but I barely noticed. The pieces were falling into place with mechanical precision. Every late meeting, every weekend conference, every time Tara had insisted I didn't need to pick her up from work events. My phone buzzed. A text from Tara. "Another late night. Don't wait up." For the first time in months, I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because I finally understood the game being played. I opened a new browser tab and started researching DNA testing services. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange state of hyper-awareness. Every conversation with Tara felt like a chess match where only one of us knew we were playing. She continued her routine, late nights, weekend calls, mysterious errands, while I quietly documented everything. My friend Samir helped without asking too many questions. We'd worked together for 6 years, and he had a useful background in digital forensics before switching to network security. "You sure about this, man?" Samir asked as we sat in his apartment, reviewing the evidence I'd collected. "This stuff gets messy fast." "It's already messy," I replied, scrolling through phone records I'd legally obtained through our family plan. "I'm just making it organized." The DNA test results arrived on a Tuesday. Max wasn't my biological son. I stared at the lab report in my car outside the testing center, feeling something shift inside my chest. Not heartbreak. That had happened weeks ago. This was something colder, more focused. Max was still my son in every way that mattered. I'd been there for his first steps, his first words, every soccer game and parent-teacher conference. But legally, Tara had been planning to use him as leverage in a divorce she'd orchestrated from the beginning. That evening, I made copies of everything: the recording, the DNA results, phone records, credit card statements showing charges at expensive restaurants and hotels I'd never been to. I stored everything in multiple locations, including a safety deposit box. Tara came home around 9, carrying takeout from the Thai place near her office. "Sorry, honey," she said, kissing my cheek with practiced affection. Brent had us working on the quarterly review until almost 8. No problem, I replied, accepting the container of pad thai. How is Brent anyway? Haven't seen him at company events lately. Oh, you know how it is. He's been swamped with the merger talks. I nodded sympathetically while calculating exactly how I wanted to destroy her world. The plan started forming that night as I lay awake listening to Tara sleep peacefully beside me. She'd constructed an elaborate deception, involving not just her affair, but a calculated scheme to maximize her financial gain from our divorce. She deserved something equally calculated in return. But I wasn't going to just expose her. I was going to make sure everyone in her professional and social circle understood exactly who Tara Bell really was. Pinnacle Solutions occupied 3 floors of a downtown high-rise, all glass walls and open floor plans designed to promote collaborative synergy. I'd been there exactly twice, once for a holiday party and once to pick up Tara when her car was in the shop. On Thursday morning, I dressed in my best suit and drove downtown with a manila envelope containing copies of everything I'd discovered. The building directory listed Tara's department on the 14th floor. The elevator ride felt like ascending to a final boss battle in a video game I'd been playing without realizing it. Tara's assistant, a young woman named Jessica, looked surprised to see me. "Oh, hi, Mr. Bell. Tara's in the conference room with her team. They're doing quarterly reviews." "Perfect," I said. "I need to deliver something important." The conference room was exactly what I'd expected. A glass box where a dozen people in business attire sat around a polished table, laptops open, taking notes while Tara presented quarterly HR metrics. Brent Mallory sat at the head of the table, mid-40s, silver hair, expensive watch. He looked exactly like the kind of man who would drive a Jaguar and think he was untouchable. I knocked on the glass door and entered without waiting for permission. "Ethan?" Tara's voice cracked slightly. "What are you doing here?" "Delivering your performance review," I said, walking around the table to where she stood frozen by the projection screen. I handed her the envelope. "DNA results, phone records, and a recording of your conversation with your mother about child support fraud. I thought your team should know what kind of performance you've really been delivering." The silence in the room was absolute. 12 pairs of eyes shifted between me, Tara, and Brent, who had gone pale. Tara's hands shook as she opened the envelope. Her face crumpled as she scanned the contents. "This is a private matter," Brent said, standing up. "I think you should leave." "Actually, Brent, this involves you directly." I turned to address the room. "See, my wife has been having an affair with her boss while planning to commit paternity fraud in our divorce. The child she's been claiming is mine for 12 years is actually his." One of the women at the table gasped. Someone else whispered something I couldn't catch. "I'm filing for divorce this afternoon," I continued. "I thought Tara's colleagues should know they've been working with someone who considers fraud a career strategy." I walked toward the door, then stopped. "Oh, and Brent, your wife Felicia might be interested in these phone records. I'll make sure she gets copies." I left them sitting in stunned silence and took the elevator down to the lobby, feeling lighter than I had in months. Tara didn't come home that night, or the next night. When she finally appeared on Saturday morning, she looked like she'd been sleeping in her office. Max was at soccer practice, so we had the house to ourselves for what I suspected would be our final conversation as a married couple. "You destroyed everything," she said, standing in our kitchen with her arms crossed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I exposed the truth," I replied, pouring coffee like we were discussing weekend plans. "How is that destroying anything?" "Brent's been suspended pending an investigation. The whole office thinks I'm some kind of criminal. My mother won't even return my calls." "Probably because you are some kind of criminal, and your mother helped you plan it." Tara's composure cracked. "You self-righteous piece of garbage. You think you're so smart, but you have no idea what's coming. Enlighten me." "I've been talking to people at your company. Turns out there are some interesting questions about your network security protocols. some missing equipment logs, some unauthorized access to client systems. My coffee cup stopped halfway to my lips. What are you talking about? Amazing what people will believe when they hear it from a concerned spouse who's worried about her husband's recent erratic behavior. She smiled for the first time since I'd walked into that conference room. You want to play games, Ethan? Let's play games. By Monday morning, I understood exactly what she meant. My boss, Vicky, called me into her office before I'd even settled at my desk. Ethan, we need to discuss some concerns that have been raised about your recent work. What kind of concerns? Questions about your access to sensitive systems, some irregularities in equipment logs, a report that you've been acting strangely at home, possibly under stress. I felt the trap closing around me. Who reported this? I can't reveal that, but it came from a reliable source who's concerned about your well-being. Tara had been busy. While I'd been focused on exposing her affair, she'd been constructing a narrative that painted me as unstable and potentially criminal. I need to see the specific allegations, I said. We're conducting a preliminary review. Until that's complete, I'm placing you on administrative leave. I drove home in a daze, realizing I'd underestimated my opponent. Tara wasn't just vindictive, she was strategic, but too could play the long game. Samir met me at a coffee shop near his apartment that evening. I'd filled him in on Tara's retaliation, and he'd spent the afternoon doing what he did best, digital detective work. She's been busy, he said, sliding a tablet across the table. Look at this. The screen showed a group chat with 5 participants. Tara, her assistant Lauren, 2 other women from her office, and someone named Nina from accounting. How did you get this? Let's just say Pinnacle's network security isn't as tight as they think. These messages go back 3 months. I scrolled through the conversation history, my anger building with each exchange. Tara, Ethan's getting suspicious. Need to speed up timeline. Lauren, what about the kid situation? Tara, DNA will prove he's not the father. Child support secured either way. Nina, what if he fights it? Tara, he won't. Too weak, always has been. The messages continued, detailing not just the affair, but a calculated plan to destroy my reputation if I discovered the truth. There's more, Samir said, swiping to another screen. She's been using company resources to investigate you. Background checks, credit reports, even tried to access your employment records. That's illegal. Very illegal, and I have documentation of every access. I leaned back in my chair, a plan forming. Can you get me into their system? Hypothetically, sure, but whatever you're thinking, nothing illegal. I just want to make sure these messages get the attention they deserve. The next morning, Pinnacle Solutions' entire staff received an email from their HR system containing screenshots of Tara's group chat, complete with timestamps and metadata, proving authenticity. I wasn't there to see the chaos, but Lauren called me around noon, screaming about lawsuits and destroyed careers before hanging up. Samir texted me an hour later. Building security just escorted 3 people out, Tara, Lauren, and Nina. My phone rang immediately. Tara, you think you've won? Her voice was shaking with rage. This isn't over, not even close. Actually, I think it is, I replied. Your boss is suspended, you're unemployed, and everyone knows exactly who you really are. I still have Max. No, Tara, you really don't. The custody hearing was scheduled for a Friday morning. I'd spent 2 weeks preparing with my attorney, organizing evidence, and having difficult conversations with Max about what was happening to our family. He took it better than I'd expected. I kind of figured Mom wasn't telling the truth about stuff, he said when I explained about the DNA results. She's been lying about a lot of things lately. You're still my son, I told him. Biology doesn't change that. I know, Dad. I want to stay with you. Tara showed up to court with a new lawyer and a strategy that surprised no one who knew her. She claimed I'd manipulated the DNA results and stolen confidential information to frame her for crimes she didn't commit. Her attorney painted me as a vindictive husband who'd orchestrated an elaborate revenge scheme against an innocent woman who'd simply fallen out of love. My attorney responded by presenting the recorded phone conversation, the group chat messages, and testimony from 3 witnesses who'd seen Tara and Brent together at hotels and restaurants over the past year. The judge listened to everything with the patience of someone who'd seen this drama play out countless times before. "Mrs. Bell," he said finally, "the evidence suggests you engaged in systematic deception regarding the paternity of your child while planning to commit fraud in your divorce proceedings. The court finds no credible evidence that this information was obtained illegally or manipulated." He awarded me full custody of Max, along with a restraining order preventing Tara from contacting either of us without court supervision. As we left the courthouse, Tara made one last attempt at manipulation. "You've turned my son against me," she called out from the steps. I stopped and turned around. "I didn't have to turn him against you, Tara. You did that yourself." 6 months later, I received a letter from an attorney in California. Tara had moved to Los Angeles and was contesting the custody arrangement, claiming new evidence of my misconduct. I showed the letter to Max, who was doing homework at our kitchen table. "She's still trying," I said. He looked up from his math problems. "Let her try, Dad. Everyone knows the truth now." He was right. The truth had a way of protecting itself once it was fully exposed. I filed the letter in a folder with all the other legal documents from our case and went back to making dinner. Some battles end with dramatic confrontations, but others end with the simple recognition that the war is over. Tara had lost everything she'd schemed to gain: her job, her reputation, her son, and her carefully constructed future. I'd lost a marriage that had been built on lies from the beginning. In the end, that felt like a fair trade. The kitchen timer went off, signaling that dinner was ready. Max closed his textbook and helped me set the table for 2. We ate in comfortable silence, 2 people who'd survived a storm and found themselves in calmer waters. Outside, it started to rain, but inside our house, everything felt exactly as it should be.